Hello and welcome to the Chameleon Academy podcast. I'm your host, Bill Strand, and today I bring on the creative force behind the Neptune the Chameleon YouTube and TikTok show. Today we talk about what it takes to make a show about good chameleon husbandry and what insights she's gotten into the state of chameleon education on the frontier edge of social media platforms. Please join me in welcoming Neptune the Chameleon to the Chameleon Academy podcast. Good morning, Chameleon Wranglers. Today I am here with someone that is no stranger to the airwaves, and this is Neptune the Chameleon. Welcome to the Chameleon Academy podcast.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Well, it is wonderful having you on. You are one of the most known faces in the chameleon social media, so we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
To start off, let's go into your background. How did you get started with chameleons? Let's just start with that.
Yeah, basic question. So just like a lot of people, I saw a picture of a panther chameleon on the internet, and you could say the rest is history. I think as soon as you see a panther chameleon, that really sparks the interest. I did a bunch of research. I'm pretty sure including your podcast, I can still remember the very first episode I listened to being the one all about selling baby chameleons, which is kind of funny because I wasn't even planning on buying or selling, but that was the first one that popped up, and big fan of the podcast, so just this real
Wonderful
experience to be here. But yeah, so I saw that picture of the panther and then did all kinds of research. Then I found out I was moving halfway across the country. And I was like, ooh, probably shouldn't take on the responsibility of a new pet, knowing that I'm going to move. So it kind of went on the back burner, moved to the new city, got, a new job, started the whole, life thing. And then I just coincidentally was driving around town and came across a local reptile shop. And I was like, what? What's this? So I just popped in, saw a baby chameleon for the first time in real life, and that sealed the deal. It re-sparked all of that interest. I redid all of my research, and fast forward, got myself a dragon strand off Craigslist, was on the forums, and now here we are. Neptune the Chameleon was born.
Wonderful. Now, when you say Neptune the Chameleon was born, what inspired you to start a YouTube channel, and how far into your journey did that happen?
Yeah. So at the time, it was just an Instagram account, and I made one called Neptune the Chameleon. Obviously, my chameleon is named Neptune, and I actually snagged the handle before bringing him home, right? Because I was like, oh, I don't want someone to steal this. So I made the account. I didn't even have my chameleon yet, but I had the name picked out and everything. And my first post was a picture of the cage, ooh, who's going to be in here? That sort of thing. And really the intention was I had my personal Instagram account, and I didn't want to flood my friends and family with chameleon content. It's like, if you want to follow it, it's there. If not, you won't hurt my feelings. And it also allowed me the opportunity to also follow a bunch of other chameleon content, right? And kind of have this separation between all my friends and family and then a bunch of cute chameleons. So it just started out as an Instagram account, a place for me, just like all of us, to post the thousands of pictures I take of my chameleon, and just kind of grew it from there. Simultaneously, I was becoming more and more active on the chameleon forums. Started out as a lurker, made the account. I'm Gingero on there, by the way. Everyone doesn't realize that because it's not Neptune the Chameleon, but this was before Neptune the Chameleon was a thing, right? So I was a lurker and then became more and more active on the forums, and still to this day remember the very first time I answered a forum question. It took me like 2 hours to write my response and reread it because I would hate to share, wrong information. And I hit publish, and after that became very, very, very active on the chameleon forum, spending hours and hours a day writing basically novels to the common questions. And if you're familiar with the forums, you fill out the husbandry questionnaire, going over your enclosure size, UVB, all of that. And then someone will come back, usually in red text, and will give you feedback, which is great, but honestly is exhausting when you're repeating the same thing over and over of what UVB you need, you see the same things, same mistakes, right? And I'm like, man, my hands are getting tired. There's got to be a better way to be able to provide this content to people. And I have a background in social media. I wasn't a stranger to at least the back end of YouTube. I had never been in front of the camera per se. But at the same time, I was a big YouTube user, watching a lot of other reptile content creators and trying to watch any and all chameleon videos, and very quickly realized the more I learned about chameleon care, how many inconsistencies and incorrect information there was on YouTube. I was like, we've got a gap here. I'm writing novels over here on the Chameleon forums and watching all these videos that have incorrect care information. It's like, no one's doing it right. No one's sitting there and explaining this how it's supposed to be on the second largest search engine in the world. Plus, chameleons are inherently very visual creatures, right? Like, they just warrant pictures and videos. That's why we all have our own Instagram accounts of our chameleons, and that folder in our phone, with 7,000 pictures. That's just the beauty of the chameleon, is how visual they are, and it's a lot easier for me to explain proper UVB gradient and branch placement if I can show you it versus trying to type out 7 inches here, put a branch there, circling and drawing arrows on people's pictures, right? So then I just started making YouTube videos, and I waited until I had 1,000 followers on Instagram. That was like my thing, is I wanted to at least have 1,000 on Instagram before trying to go into a different platform. And then Neptune the Chameleon on YouTube was made, and then fast forward a bit, TikTok became a thing, so then I got on over there, and here we are.
Okay, so what would, if someone wanted to find you, where would they look?
You just have to type in Neptune the Chameleon on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Technically, I do also have a Facebook page, but I don't really post on there. In fact, I should probably just post a message saying I don't check this often because between the other 3, it keeps me too busy to also be over in the Facebook space.
Okay, so as somebody who helps beginners day in, day out, you'll have a unique perspective here on the question of what challenges did you run into when you started as far as getting good husbandry information?
Yeah, so I am one of the few, and I know everyone says they made a lot of mistakes, they bought the chameleon kit. I am not someone who cuts corners, and if I'm going to do something, I'm going to immerse myself as deep as I can. So I actually started out with a dragon strand enclosure, like I mentioned, bought off Craigslist, got the enclosure set up beforehand. I spent hours and hours and hours and weeks and months listening to every single, at the time, Chameleon Breeder, now Chameleon Academy.
Okay.
I like how that dates me, like, oh, back in my days, it was the Chameleon Breeder podcast. But no, really, I listened to all the episodes multiple times. I would go to that same reptile shop, and I would spend every Saturday for hours.
Wow.
Hours and hours, and I would just sit and listen to what the people working there. And this is I want to say, like, a novelty reptile shop, right? This isn't your Petco, PetSmart. This isn't the place that also says parrots and guinea pigs. Like, they do exclusively reptiles and nothing else, and they do an excellent job at it. And it's one of the few, right? Like, they do it right. And so I would just sit there on my Saturdays and Sundays and ask questions and watch the chameleons and listen to what other questions people were asking and just be a sponge and absorb it. So because I did all of this work, I was very fortunate in that I didn't make a lot of mistakes going into, chameleon keeping. And not to say I didn't make any mistakes, because obviously there's learning curve, but the biggest thing was more so having the reassurance, because you think you know all the information, but it's another thing to have an empty cage and be reading stuff versus having a cage with a chameleon in there, and then it blinks twice and you're like, what does that mean? Was that okay? And so it's being able to have that assurance that you're doing it right. And if there's that piece of shed stuck on its nose, like, is its nose going to fall off because of the stuck shit? You don't know, because you're so new. And it's one thing to read it on paper, and it's another to actually experience it. So I think that was probably the most challenging part for me, is I knew it on paper, but it's different when you're going through it.
Well, you spent a great amount of time researching and absorbing all the information that was out there. So you definitely had a good start. What was the difference between your growth when you were absorbing information from other people and your personal growth in chameleon husbandry when you started your social media outreach and was responsible for providing information?
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, and I've seen my confidence not only as a chameleon keeper, but also as, a content creator go up over the years because it is very intimidating when you're basically responsible for this chameleon's life and this person coming to you and asking you for help doesn't know. And like, wow, you may not know everything. At least you know a little bit more than they do. So at least you can share the information you do know. So that'd be advice for anyone who's listening is even if you don't consider yourself an expert, if you know for sure these are good gut loading options, then share that advice, right? At least that's something. Even if you can't help them with every piece of their husbandry and care, like share what you do know and then be able to admit, hey, I don't know, let me grab you some resources, right? Then you can drop a Neptune the Chameleon YouTube video or a Chameleon Academy URL or whatever, and then share resources where you know people can help them. I forgot what your original question was.
The difference between personal growth from when you're absorbing information and when you are now responsible for
Ah, yes.
creating
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
information.
Yeah, so there's also this pressure too to stay on top of things. For better or worse, chameleon care is constantly evolving, which I love that for the hobby and a big part to the work that you're doing. But then it's also my responsibility as someone who's educating to also stay on top of that. So it forces me to continue to grow and to continue to learn. Luckily, I have obviously the foundation, so when scientific papers come out, I can usually figure out what I'm reading, which is the difference between being new to it versus a bit established. But yeah, it definitely has its challenges, but the learning curve has been immense as a creator. And your confidence when people come back to you and send you pictures of their healthy chameleon or their new enclosure, I'm like, hey, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing. Because you get that validation and reassurance of, yes, the information that you did share was helpful, was correct. And that I think is a big difference when you're a new keeper and getting started. You don't necessarily get that immediate validation of, yes, this worked.
Okay. Now, one of the most valuable things that you are doing for the community is that you are on the front lines. Uh, it used to be that the forums were the front lines where the most beginners would come. And then it was Facebook. That is where most beginners would come. Now, you're on TikTok, and that is our community's front lines of where the newest, I will say the newest new people come. Uh, can you give me an idea of what you are seeing as to what types of people come to you on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok? What is there a difference between the types of people that are on those platforms?
Yeah, most certainly. And if anyone's familiar with social media on like the business side of it, you can see the insights, right? So I can see the demographics of, what percentage of my audience is this age and what percentage of my audience is, a male, female split. So yeah, there's definitely differences. I would say TikTok is for sure a much younger audience, less experienced audience than on the other platforms. They also want the instantaneous stuff. TikTok, by nature, is very quick consumable content and typically entertainment content more so than education. So I'm kind of in this unique spot of trying to teach people proper UVB setup while doing a TikTok dance for 30 seconds. And
Yep.
people will ask me questions and I don't know if listeners are familiar with TikTok, but the comment section, the way it's set up currently, is not ideal for providing one-on-one assisted feedback because you're limited to a very short amount of character limits. You cannot drop URLs or links in there. If I could just copy and paste a link to, my YouTube video or something, that would be a game changer. That's not an option. So now I have to push people from TikTok to a different platform. Hey, go check out the link in my bio. Hey, go search this term on YouTube. Hey, go check out this resource. So it's pretty challenging to be able to provide that one-on-one assisted support that people truly need, that mentorship, that coaching, that holding their hand through the experience. Because as you know, listeners know, it's not a one size fits all, and you have to be aware of what their supplement schedule is before making UVB recommendations. Are they on the Chameleon
Mm-hmm.
kit? I'm not going to recommend blasting them with a T5 on their 30-inch enclosure, but I don't know that that's what they're using, and how am I supposed to get that information? So then I'm like, shoot me a DM on Instagram. Now we're over there. So it's a little bit of back
Okay.
and forth, and not the best experience. But if I can post a couple different videos on TikTok that explain that, that's where I think the true value is, and that's where we can really help. But more so pointing people to additional resources because they just don't know what's available for them.
Okay. Before we go on, let's do just for the audience sake, let's do a brief summary of what each of those platforms are. So we got Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. How would you describe each one of those?
Yeah, so YouTube would be long-term videos. Typically, you'll see anywhere from like 5 to 20 minutes. You can obviously post more, but that's the most common stuff. That's where you can get super detailed. You have a comment section, so then you'll see a lot of collaboration between keepers. The limitation with YouTube is you're not able to send direct messages or post images. And with Chameleon Care, that is obviously a very limiting part of the platform. Oh, my chameleon's eyes looking weird. I'm like, I can't help you unless I know what it looks like. So that's YouTube. Instagram is very visual. Previously, it was exclusively still pictures. It is now evolving with the times where you can also be posting videos, things called Reels, which are very similar to TikToks. And the true benefit of Instagram is the ability to send direct messages or DMs. So then you can chat one on one in a private conversation where you can exchange pictures, you can drop links, and then, have conversations that way. And then TikTok is probably the newest one. The reach and the audience and potential on TikTok is the biggest for sure as compared to the other platforms. And there it's exclusively videos. They're anywhere usually from 30 seconds to a minute, but they now have the ability to post 3-minute videos, which has been a game changer in the Chameleon Care. You will see a lot of comments and collaboration there, for better or worse, sometimes nice things, sometimes not so nice things. People are very opinionated on the internet. But yeah, you'll see a lot of that, and it's a lot of sharing of content. You can make a video in response to someone else's video, and it's very entertainment based and quick and easy to consume stuff. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's a good high level summary.
I think so. That's a good description. So, what do you notice as far as the experience level of the people that come to you between those three platforms?
Well, if you know what you're doing, you're probably not messaging me. You're probably just saying like cool videos, right? Like, and
Okay.
that's the gist of it. So truly the people who are coming to me, what I've been seeing lately, and this is actually very cool because it means what I'm doing is working. I will get a DM and it says, "Thank you for the YouTube videos. I have this follow-up question." Which tells me you went to Google, you found my
I love
videos,
it.
you watched them, and then you now have follow-up questions. That to me is best case scenario. That to me tells me
Yeah.
what I'm doing is
Yeah.
working, and they're recognizing that the content I'm producing is very different than the average, chameleon video on YouTube. So that I've been seeing more often, which to your point, like, that like warms your heart. That's what it's supposed to be, and that means what you're
Yeah.
doing is working. Obviously, that's not always the case. I get a lot of people who reach out to me of like, "Hey, I just got a new chameleon and it's not eating." That's probably the most common one, right? All the classic cliches of I don't want to say symptoms, but characteristics of a new chameleon that you bring home, right? Not moving, closed eyes, not eating, why is it dark? That kind of stuff people can usually recognize as not normal behavior. And then they'll message me and like, while we know, listening, that that's normal behavior for a new chameleon, I will always offer. If you want feedback, please provide pictures of your enclosure, temperature, humidity, and UVB. And I will open it up. And if they're open and wanting to learn, then they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, here's all the information." And then we go from there. I have stopped trying to give advice on Instagram, on YouTube, and on TikTok that wasn't asked for, because it's exhausting to sit there and explain to someone why they shouldn't be doing this or that when they have no interest in learning or listening. So I now am at the point
Mm-hmm.
where my DMs are always open. I will always, even if you ask me an unrelated like enclosure question, I will always offer to provide feedback because it's an opportunity for me to catch mistakes and for them, if they're doing it right, now you got a thumbs up from someone who knows what they're talking about. And if you don't, then it's an opportunity, okay, let's dive into your supplement schedule. Let's dive into your UVB. Hey, did you know one stick in a plastic leaf probably isn't enough for your enclosure? And so it opens it up that way. So I would say the vast majority are people who just bought the chameleon and it's not acting how they see on the internet. It's not the bright green colors. It's not climbing out onto their arm. It's sitting there dark, not moving, and they're like, I should probably reach out to Neptune the chameleon. So that's how it usually goes.
So, how is it that you are able to handle all of that on the back end? Because I know what it's like when people start asking questions and it becomes a complete husbandry review, which takes time.
Yes, and this is the beauty of having over 80 detailed care videos on YouTube. And this is why on the Chameleon forums, it saved me so much time. Instead of writing the novel, I can now drop 5 YouTube links. Start with these. And I actually have a playlist on my YouTube channel called Top 5 Videos for New Keepers. Because I recognize 80 videos is a lot. And you probably shouldn't be watching the Which Bug is the Smelliest video as your first video. Like start with the UVB, start with the cage bill, So that's the beauty of having so much content on YouTube because it's searchable and it's linkable. Instagram is kind of a ongoing feed. TikTok is kind of an ongoing feed. They're not the best for SEO. They're not the best for like storing content, right? It's kind of like 48 to 72 hours and then it's off, it's off everyone's radar. And the beauty of having YouTube though is I can, spend the couple of hours with that person, recognize like, okay, where are you at? Like how much care do you need? Can I just give you a single YouTube link and you're good to go? Or do we, to your point, need to do an entire overhaul of your enclosure? You're on a budget, your chameleon's about to die, like this is obviously time sensitive. Do I need to provide one-on-one support? And so then I will do that and spend literally hours, days, weeks, months helping that person. But more often than not, I can just give them the links to the YouTube video. They ask me a question, boom, here's a link. You ask me a question, boom, here's a link. And after I do that like 5 or 6 times, they usually pick up on the fact that, oh, she probably has a video for all of my questions. And I'll do that usually like for 5 or 6. And then I'm like, if you can, try searching on my YouTube channel, finding the content. And if you have any questions after watching, then come message me. Because to your point, I don't have the time that I used to because I get too many messages to provide that one-on-one, mentorship. So I will do it so I can gauge where they're at and then kind of pass them off, to additional resources. And if you're not willing to go and sit there, and learn that content, and I always offer, this is something too, I'm like, if video content's not your thing and you would rather read something or listen to a podcast, winky face, I'm like, there's resources, right? I'm more than happy to give you some blogs. I'm more than happy to give you a podcast if videos aren't your thing, because they're not for everyone, and that's okay. But I will always offer some sort of resourcing, and I would like for the person to have enough interest in their chameleon's well-being to have that follow through and take the initiative to go look for the answers themselves. As long as I can point you in the right direction, right? Then I think you should be able to be good to go.
How often do you find that you are their first introduction to the chameleon community?
When you say chameleon community, can you clarify?
I would mean people that they would go to for advice, as in, I am looking for a mentor or a group of people that to be part of, as opposed to they get a chameleon, they come home and they're hanging out with a chameleon. And then there's something that says, I should go and look for other people that know something about chameleons and be part of a community with more people.
Yeah, so I would say pretty much all of them to answer your question, and I would follow it up with, I don't think their intention is for the community. I think their intentions are rightfully so selfish. they're just carried about themselves and their chameleon in that moment. They're not
Hmm.
necessarily going in with the intention of, ooh, I want to like get connected with other people who are interested. I think social media kind of does that organically. There's thousands of chameleon social media accounts, and so you just start following a few, and boom, you're in this now social media chameleon community. When people are DMing me, it's because they're in need of help, and they're typically in a state of crisis, and they're desperate, and so they will tell me like, I have DM'd every single chameleon account and you're the only one who's responded. And I will respond at this point in time, can't say this will last forever. I will respond back to every single person who DMs me. As long as you're a nice person and not mean, then I will respond back to you, and I will take that time, to help you out, which I think as my platform gets bigger and bigger, we'll see how long I can sustain that. But for now, I
Hmm.
can. And it just breaks my heart when people are just desperate, truly and utterly desperate for help. And so they're going to the internet, they're searching Chameleon, and my name pops up. And so they will just blast my accounts like searching for help. So that's typically how people find me. And like hopefully best case scenario, their chameleon, health issues get resolved. They have that confidence and then they can, get into the chameleon community and really enjoy the benefits of the awesome people that we have in the chameleon world. But that's hardly ever their intention.
Hmm. Do you have any idea where they typically get their first chameleon
Yeah, a
information?
lot of
Is
times
it pet store?
from their breeders, a lot of times from pet stores, and more often than not, whatever pops up first on the internet, which is why, it's super important that, your content is showing up and my content is showing up because that's where they're going, right? In the chameleon forms. So it's typically at the store and they buy the chameleon kit or they're short on time because they're quote unquote rescuing the chameleon from PetSmart, so they don't have a cage, so they just have to buy what's in front of them. And then I get this a lot too, which I guess is the second best case scenario. They buy the chameleon kit, they watch my videos, and then realize they messed up. Like, oh, I probably shouldn't have bought that. Okay, so like, what do I do now? How can I make the chameleon kit work until I can get my next paycheck or what have you? So that is happening more often too, which I think is a good sign. We're heading in the right direction.
Hmm.
They mess up. They go search for content and then realize they've made mistakes, and the difference is they're willing to learn. And that's why I always say, I'm like, I will spend however much time is needed with a person
Hmm.
as long as you're willing to learn and make changes. I have no intent, like, I do not enjoy talking to brick walls, who want to argue
Yeah.
against me. I'm like, that's fine. Then do it that I don't, like, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to
Hmm.
help. And if you're willing to learn, and I will spend the time. I will answer those questions because that to me is worth it. And people are like, oh, how do I repay you? I'm like, just give your chameleon a happy, healthy life. That's all I ask in return. And if you want to take it a step further, share that information with the chameleon keeper behind you. Keep the information going. You're one person, I'm one person. We can't do this ourselves. We have to rely on the community. And so if you can spend that time, helping your neighbor's friend who also got a chameleon, right? Then, and I get those too. People will DM me the pictures of their friends' enclosures, right? And they're like, I think this is that
Hmm.
what you would recommend? And they turn to me for validation. I'm like, yep, definitely need a new UVB, definitely female. Here's some resources on egg laying because maybe they have a male, so they're not familiar on how to give that advice to their friend, but they're trying, right? And to my point earlier, they're reaching out to resources to kind of pass the information along. That to me tells me we're heading in the right direction. That to me makes it worthwhile.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about that direction. And this is what I'm about to ask is a hugely open-ended question, so it can go anywhere. But just whatever thoughts you have, where do you think we're going as far as the quality of chameleon information available and people absorbing it? And the context of this question is every time we have a different social media platform that arises, it's like we have a generation that has a different way of absorbing information and has different expectations as to what information, how it's going to be consumed. And I'll say, for example, social media has helped given people the idea that they should be able to type a question anywhere and get an answer
Mm-hmm.
immediately. And the whole how good is this answer has is just isn't a concern anymore. It's which answer do I get first? That's the right one. What trends do you see? And hopefully there's good trends in there
Yeah,
as well.
unfortunately, the first one that comes to mind is a bad trend, and I see this a lot on TikTok, is people doing things with their chameleons and setting unrealistic expectations. And what I mean by that is you have this cute TikTok video of them going to the grocery store with their chameleon, and now you have, and it has 3 million views. 10 million views, 20 million
Mm-hmm.
views. And then you have my video, it's like 2,000. I'm like, hey, don't do that. So that's I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the challenges with social media is yes, it's easy to get an answer, whether it's right or wrong, but it's also easy for Jim Bob 123 to go make an account and post their videos and then get quadruple the amount of views that my stuff gets or your stuff gets or someone else's gets. So it has the ability, and we'll reverse that, right? Of where you can have the potential to have big impact, and hopefully my content can reach people. But that's a trend that I see is, increasing
Okay.
the bad stuff, I guess, for better or worse, or unrealistic expectations, I think is a better way to put it. And so people go into buying a chameleon, and I actually have a whole video on YouTube, 5 reasons why you shouldn't get a chameleon. And it's getting some
Mm-hmm.
popularity right now. It's getting, a decent amount of views. And I've seen people say, thank you so much for telling me this. I can't do live bugs. A chameleon is not the right pet for me. So like I'm catching people before they even get their chameleon, which is obviously way better than the other way
Ideal.
around. Or I'm like, hey, you can't be taking your chameleon to the grocery store. They're like, oh, I thought I could. Do you know any reptiles where you can do that? I'm like, no, not the pet for that. So we're able to catch them in the front. Not everyone, obviously, people get through,
Mm-hmm.
but that's one thing. Um, Also, for better or worse, anyone can make an account, which means anyone can, to your point, answer comments and questions. So if you do have the chameleon knowledge, I encourage you to put yourself out there and try your best, to help other people. And again, if you don't know the answer, don't pretend like you do. But if you do know the answer, please share that. Or if there's a Chameleon Academy resource or net, like share that because that's, I think, the true value of social media is the collaboration, is the reach that we can have, is the way that we're able to share information instantaneously. Um, so I think
Mm-hmm.
those are all good things. But I know you've talked about this a few times too, though. But then you have the quote unquote experts, right? Who who think they
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
it's a double-edged sword. But um, yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think my thoughts on that.
Okay. What are your plans for your outreach? Where's Neptune the Chameleon
Yeah,
going?
I've asked myself that. I have over 80 care videos on YouTube now,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot on TikTok, and I will always be posting pictures of my chameleons on on Instagram. I think for now I'll stick to those three platforms and just continue to grow the impact. And I think with YouTube, I have a pretty good foundation on how to set up your enclosure and general care and husbandry. But I think an area
Mm-hmm.
that we're lacking, I know you understand this challenge, is trying to educate people on chameleon behavior. And that just comes with time and experience, and it's very difficult to try and put into a video, but I'm kind of up for the challenge because I think that is a big part
Okay.
of chameleon keeping is understanding their body language
Mm-hmm.
and what their colors mean, and it's not a black and white answer. There's 12 other things you have to take into consideration with this
Yeah.
behavior to pinpoint its root
Yeah.
cause. I also am just now dipping my toe into health issues. And I think this is the beauty of having a larger platform. Luckily, none of my chameleons have health issues, but obviously metabolic bone disease, upper respiratory infections, thermal burns, right? Those are things that we see very, very often. I don't have pictures of my
Mm-hmm.
chameleons with thermal burns because they've never had them. Same with MBD. But the beauty of having a platform of this size is I can get that those pictures and videos from other people
Yes.
to share that. You can't do that when you have 200 subscribers, right? So I'm now at that point where I'm able to share resources and again leveraging the benefit of social media and sharing that information. And I used to be hesitant to do that, but my mindset is while I don't have direct experience with thermal burns, I'm at the point now where I've mentored thousands of people through thermal burns. So I have at least some level of confidence that I know what I'm talking about, or at least can share what I do know. And to my earlier point, I don't claim to have experience with thermal burns, but I do know here are the steps to take care of them. And that to me is better than me not saying anything. And having someone, who has a thermal burn is completely clueless. Like at least I can give them a starting point them in the direction of how to find a good reptile vet. Here's the process. Here's how you can prevent it. So at least I know how to prevent it because none of my chameleons, have gone anything like that yet. So I think that's probably, trying to tackle the meatier stuff, the juicier stuff outside of just basic husbandry care. And I would love to go back and start updating and redoing videos, because we're constantly learning. And so
Yeah.
even a
Yeah.
video that's a year
Uh-huh.
old can be out of date. So I would love
Yeah. Yeah.
to go back. Plus, some of them are pretty embarrassing with like the editing and the filming. And I was like, okay, I can do a better job. But sometimes you just have to start. You just have to do it and recognize it's not so much the entertainment quality or the video quality, but more so the information that you're providing. And so you put it out there and know that you can always redo it. So I think I'm at the point now where I can start to redo stuff. Or I get a lot of questions and it's the same questions, and obviously I missed, that in my video, so I can go redo it and
Right.
make sure I
Yes. Yes.
address that because I didn't anticipate being asked, those specific questions. And now that I get, hundreds of DMs, I can usually pretty well anticipate the questions people are going to ask. But it'd be great to go back and make sure that I'm covering all of it. So it's a one-stop shop. I'm not having to answer the same comment over and over because I missed a piece of information.
Well, your outreach has had a significant impact and has spread solid husbandry to places where it's needed. And so, on behalf of the community, thank you very much. And from me personally, if there's anything I can do to support, whether pictures, video, whatever,
Yeah,
you know how to
super
contact me,
appreciate
and
that.
I'd be happy to
Yeah,
help.
it's been a whirlwind and it feels surreal sometimes, the impact that you have because you just do it because you love it and, you don't necessarily realize the potential impact. I mean, this just started out as me wanting to post pictures of my baby chameleon. And now here I am talking to you on the podcast that I listened to, when I was first getting started. And I went to a reptile expo this weekend and met a subscriber for the first time. And like they wanted to take a picture with me and knew who
Oh,
I was and all my
yeah.
chameleons' names. And I was like, wow, like that was never my intention, but an added benefit. And yeah, there's a lot of downsides to social media, but I know I can confidently say I've helped thousands of chameleons and thousands of chameleon keepers, have that confidence going into their chameleon care. And that to me, I makes it all worth it. All of it worth it, So it's been a great experience and I'm excited to see where Neptune the Chameleon goes from here. And I hope to see other chameleon content creators come out there. I'm kind of a lone wolf right now on this,
Yeah.
and I just want to say there's no monopoly. The more information that we can share, the better. All that I ask is that you make sure that your care is as correct as you can make it. And we will all benefit from more content that is accurate and try and outweigh all the content that is inaccurate. And just make sure that you give credit where credit is due. I know, I'm sure you've experienced this, Bill, but like some people have stolen my content or have like claimed it as their own. And, sometimes it's with the best of intentions because they're fans. And all I ask is that, we give credit where credit is due, but otherwise go for it. Share the content, share the love, share the knowledge, and share your passions with chameleons because they really are wonderful creatures. We just have to make sure we get them set up correctly and know what information to follow.
Well, I want to personally thank you for coming on to the podcast and speaking with me. It is a special pleasure for me when I'm able to interview somebody who is doing something significant in the community, and they let me know that they
Yeah.
started listening
Yeah.
to my podcast. That is a wonderfully fulfilling
Absolutely.
thing to hear, and so I wish you the best of luck and any support I can offer, and
Thank you.
keep
Thank
up
you.
the good
Appreciate
work.
it.
It's fast moving out in that social media world, and it can be a challenge to keep up. I know this from personal experience. Right now, TikTok is the newest thing, but in 10 years, it'll be something completely different. So we're going to have to just keep up with the times. And if you haven't yet checked out the Neptune the Chameleon show on YouTube or TikTok, I highly recommend you go there and check it out. Just search for Neptune the Chameleon, and it should come up with no problem. Thank you, Neptune, for joining me on the show here. And to you viewers, thank you for coming along with me as each episode we explore another facet of this chameleon world. It's amazing how much there is to experience. So as for now, this is Bill Strand signing off, and I'll see you next time.